Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. I keep saying the same thing these past couple of days. I keep talking about how I'm building a list of examples of X, Y, and Z, all kinds of moments of hypocrisy, of various different issues. Well, it's kind of funny how I always say things like that. Perfect story pops up for me to reinforce that point. That's exactly what this is. Democrat Representative Katherine Clark. She's just like all the other Democrats over the last couple of years, going on and on and on and on, lecturing you, telling us just how bad Donald Trump is, but most importantly, not just Donald Trump supporters, the evil right-wing MAGA coalition, those domestic extremist terrorists that threaten our nation. She goes on and on and on and on. But you can't exactly say that. You can't exactly be making those points if your own son or your own daughter, I don't even know. I mean, it's like a different gender every article that I read, is now involved in and charged with an act of domestic political terror. I mean, it's game over at that point. And here's where I get to the point of a list. We're getting a whole list of these privileged left-wing Democrat children, children of prominent Democrat politicians and officials, like Bill de Blasio's daughter, for instance, who are involved in these acts of vandalism and terrorism, involved in these little Antifa cells. And so I guess what I'm trying to say here is, Democrat Representative Katherine Clark, I don't want to ever hear anything about domestic extremism coming from your mouth or your family. We got some stuff to get into. Let's roll the tape. All right, folks, take a look at this. Let's start off with the receipts. Here's Katherine Clark on January 6, 2021. Despite the seditious attempt to overthrow our democracy, we in Congress will fulfill our duty to ensure the will of the people and the integrity of democracy is upheld. But the next days and weeks remain dangerous. Donald Trump is a traitor to our country and our Constitution. He must be removed from office and prevented from further endangering our country and our people. Representative Clark shares her memory of the January 6th insurrection.
And being here in DC this morning is already emotional. But I guess if I had to pick one, it would be as I approached the Capitol to go to my office, to see those white supremacist flags flying, and to hear this angry roar that emanated from the Capitol. The tear gas and the bear spray that were being used against the police. It was a moment that is imprinted on my mind. And the thought that this was happening in our country just was so hard to take in. And that feeling has stayed with us.
In fiery remarks, Katherine Clark blasts extremists who have taken over the speakership vote. That was 2 weeks ago. Democrat Representative Katherine Clark claiming that the America First House Republicans who were standing in Kevin McCarthy's way were extremists who are taking over. Katherine Clark keeps telling us the extremists have taken over. Well, Mrs. Katherine Clark, let's have a real conversation about extremists. Womp, womp, womp. We got this from the Conservative Brief. Top Democrat's child arrested for allegedly assaulting police officer and vandalizing monument. House Democratic Whip Katherine Clark's child was arrested in Boston on Saturday night after allegedly vandalizing a monument and then assaulting a police officer while being taken into custody. According to a Boston Police News release, Jared Dowell of Melrose was arrested during an anti-police protest. Dowell was placed under arrest and charged with assault by means of a dangerous weapon, destruction or injury of personal property, and damage of property by graffiti/tagging. Clark released a statement on Twitter following the arrest and described Dowell as non-binary and referred to her child as Riley, my daughter. Again, I still have no idea what I'm looking at here or what the gender of the individual really is. I'm assuming it's a biological biological male, but anyways, let's continue on. But she released this tweet right over here. Last night, my daughter was arrested in Boston, Massachusetts. I love Riley, and this is a very difficult time in the circle of joy and pain in parenting. This will be evaluated by the legal system, and I am confident in that process. Yeah, I'm sure you're real confident in that process, because what's probably going to happen is your child is going to be let off scot-free, kind of like a la Hunter Biden. But it's another one of these examples to add to the list. We have this from Antifa Watch. Jared Riley Dowell allegedly graffitied "Stop Cop City" and assaulted police while resisting arrest. This is the individual named. Perfectly stable, nothing to see here. It's another rich, overly privileged, leftoid kid caught up in this Antifa revolutionary communist garbage, committing acts of vandalism and even to the extent I'd say acts of domestic terrorism. Let's talk about extremism. It seems as though the political extremism that Mrs. Catherine Clark is constantly going on about actually lives in her own home. You can't lecture us while you have an Antifa militant sitting at your dinner table. This is what these Democrats breed, figuratively and literally. We have so many examples of these privileged little Democrat kids being involved in these violent acts, violent means, in the pursuit of political ends. That is the textbook literal definition of terrorism. And then simultaneously they turn around and lecture us and tell us that we're the problem. No, it seems as though the ideology that you promote and the ideology that you foster not only in your political career and political party, but in your own house, in your own family, is what's creating real domestic terrorism, real extremism. And this is yet again another example. It's an example of the rich kids who want to tear down capitalism. There's an article from the New York Times of all places from back in November 27th, 2020. The rich kids who want to tear down capitalism, socialist-minded millennial heirs, are trying to live their values by getting rid of their money. There's another piece by the New York Post, the ugly privilege of rich white protesters. Boy, are they awfully pale for members of the New African Black Panther Party. We're talking, of course, of the 8 comrades arrested last week for rioting at a demo planned by the NABPP and its allied revolutionary abolitionist movement. These faces, by the way, are the faces that were arrested during that New African Black Panther Party moment or event. The New York Post continues, not just white, but in several examples, highly privileged. Clara Kraber is a wealthy Upper East Sider with a second home in posh Litchfield County, Connecticut, whose mom is an architect and dad a child psychiatrist who teaches at Columbia. Elliot Rucka, 20 of Portland, Oregon, is the son of a famed comic book writer and best-selling author. Claire Severine, 27, seems to be a signed model and actress who has lived in Canada and Ireland. Etkar Surratt, 27, summered in Austria as a child. Frank Furmeister, 30, is a freelance art director who's done work for Pepsi, Samsung, and Glenlivet. We're not sure even the late satirist Tom Wolfe could top these portraits of poor little white kids trashing regular folks' workplaces in the name of social justice. Every city, every town burned the precinct to the ground, the group chanted as it moved up Lafayette Street on Friday, smashing windows and racking up what police say is at least $100,000 in damages during a 3-hour rampage. It's little champagne, socialist, privileged Democrat kids who are running amok, destroying things, burning down black communities in the name of social justice and racial justice. It is ridiculous. And it's the same phenomenon that we're seeing with Mrs. Catherine Clark and her daughter slash son slash, I don't even know at this point. I mean, I use too much brain bandwidth for this gender stuff. It's a bunch of rich kids who have never worked for or earned anything in their life. They have some sort of guilt. There has to be bad parenting involved as well. And it's almost like a guilt or a rejection of their parents or a rejection of their wealth that materializes in this way. And they end up becoming socialist revolutionary types. I'm sure the whole, indoctrination at school doesn't exactly help in the current cultural phenomenon that's kind of pervasive right now. And a good chunk of them end up as LARPing Antifa members. LARPing in some revolutionary battle against some evil system. You know, the same evil system that gave them the beautiful lives that they've lived. And that's why we see the same thing over and over again. You know, we look at a Black Lives Matter protest, and it's just a bunch of white people. It sounds like a Babylon Bee skit, but it's reality. And it's also stupid and cringe. It's a bunch of rich, overly privileged kids who have no experience, no perspective. A lot of the times they haven't traveled or they haven't really seen, you know, the rugged side of the world. Maybe they've gone to rich, posh places, but they haven't seen the rugged side of the third world. And they just lack perspective. They don't know what communism is. I mean, Karl Marx, Che Guevara, Joseph Stalin, and the rest of these communist revolutionaries in world history have all fit the exact same archetype. It's a lack of perspective, and it's a very interesting phenomenon. You know, you have poor people across the globe who are willing to do anything to get a chance in the world of capitalism. They embrace capitalism and they want to work for everything. And then you have these rich, spoiled brats who have everything, and it seems as though they want to spend most of their energy working towards breaking it all down and losing it all via socialism. It's cringe, it's weird, it's a very interesting psychological phenomenon, but it's real. The stats back it up, the anecdotes back it up, and here's yet again another anecdote. Another Democrat kid caught in the same LARPing fantasy. And just to go back to the initial point of the video, Mrs. Democrat Representative Catherine Clark, I never want to hear a word about extremism from your facehole ever again. Fix your own damn house before you lecture anybody else. You know, kind of similar to these woke revolutionary types, make your bed, become an adult and get your own crap together before you lecture the rest of the world on how to fix the world's problems. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.